Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Audio Fanfics and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto became a being of the night? Naruto times Hinata times Sakura times Ino times Anko times Kurenai times Tsunade times Shizune times Tamari times Tenten times Mei times Konan times Karen times Yugito times Samui times Raven-haired girl times Shadows times Death times Vengeance Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Waking up to a bright new morning, Naruto groaned in pain as he slowly got up onto shaky legs. Not because his body was still waking up, but because of the fact that he was in genuine pain. Ever since he helped that lady that was passed out in the path he took to go home, he had been in so much pain. She gave him one hell of a hickey and man did it stay. Making his way to the bathroom and gazing into the mirror, he pulled the neck of his shirt down to reveal the 2 holes where that girl bit him. 2 puncture marks were seen at his neck and had veins that were pulsing a red energy. He asked Kyuubi to try and fix this problem, but Kyuubi could only reply that her power couldn't fix this. This was ancient. What was happening to Naruto had been around for thousands of years, yet it died out during the birth of the shinobi era. Long before she and her siblings were born. But she did hear stories and rumors regarding them. Naruto merely scoffed at the idea of something as ridiculous as that. He was Naruto Uzumaki, the one to become Hokage. What was he gonna be if he gave into a small hickey? But that wasn't the only thing he felt after receiving the bite. Ever since he was bitten by that girl, he had been finding the sun to be extremely annoying. And it got stronger every day. He'd often hear from people that it was a wonderful morning. To him, the sun hated him. And he hated the sun. Today he'd be going on the C-rank mission. His first ever. But for some reason, his body didn't want any of it. His body just refused such a task to take place. Forcing his body to move, Naruto packed away his gear and headed out to meet his friends at the gates. Once he made it, they headed out and began their escort mission to Wave. Doing everything he could to not collapse as they walked, Naruto soon began to sweat up one hell of a storm as he dropped to his knees. Stupid Idot. This is no time to take breaks, barked Sakura with Naruto panting hard as sweat beaded down his brow. I know. Spat Naruto, hoisting himself up onto shaky legs. You okay? Asked Kakashi, looking to Naruto. I'm fine, let's just keep moving, said Naruto, walking off. Passing by a tree, they noticed a puddle that seemed out of the ordinary as it hadn't rained in weeks. As they walked away, 2 people came out the puddle but were dispatched by a hunter nin from Kiri. After learning from Tazuna that there were people after his life to ensure the bridge was never finished, did Naruto give out. His body collapsed on him as his breathing became erratic as sweat beaded down his body. Everyone merely looked on at the scene while Sasuke merely scoffed. Dumbass passes out not even 30 minutes into a mission. What a weakling. Snorted Sasuke. That's enough. Barked Kakashi, making his way to Naruto. Assessing the boy's body, Kakashi found Teo bite marks on the side of Naruto's neck near the collarbone. Arching an eyebrow as he examined the bite marks, he felt that there was something strange about these marks. He had never seen those marks before. Picking up Naruto with everyone heading to Wave, Kakashi began to think as to what was Naruto. His body felt extremely hot. Like he had more than a fever. Whatever it was, it wasn't good. With the girl sprinting as fast as she could while making sure to look like she was human, she ran down the pathway of the village. Her face warped in worry and fear as she moved through the village. Damn it. I injected my venom into a human due to my rage. It's only a matter of time before people will know of my existence, she said to herself as she sprinted through the village. Her long flowing black hair tugged in the air as she sprinted. With Naruto finally making it to Wave, they got settled into Tazuna's house while they set Naruto into one of the rooms of the house. Kakashi was slightly worried with Naruto as he feared that Naruto may not make it through. The boy looked in a rather large amount of pain as he panted and sweated up one hell of a storm. And now his body felt like the sun itself with heat. Red-hot veins were seen over his body as the two holes on Naruto's neck burned ever so brightly. Tsunami, Tezuna's daughter, assisted with ensuring Naruto was kept cool, but that seemed to be a mission on its own. The wet cloth that she kept placing on Naruto's head steamed and was already dry within 2 seconds of her placing it on his head. As she desperately tried to get his body heat down, Kakashi, Sakura and Sasuke were downstairs. Kakashi has his nose in his book once again as Sasuke stood there brooding into the distance while Sakura was swooning over the emo duck butt. Collapsing like that when we were not even a day into our mission. He's such a weakling, I actually wonder why he's on our team, remarked Sasuke. I agree. He's so weak he shouldn't be alive, snorted Sakura. Sasuke, that's enough. Naruto is in pain right now. Something is happening to him and I don't even know what is wrong. Do you ever care for your team? Snapped Kakashi. HMPH. That idiot will always be a weakling. Whereas I am an elite. Spat Sasuke, heading out to brood some more. Sakura tailed Sasuke, leaving Kakashi in the home alone as he sighed and shoved his nose deeper into his book. Naruto, I just hope you pull through this, said Kakashi as his thoughts drifted to the blonde. But for Naruto, his body was extremely hot as his breathing quickened. His eyes scrunched shut as he fell into his subconscious and met Kyuubi. Anything better? Asked Naruto. Kyuubi shook her head as she looked to her jailer. Unfortunately not. I've tried everything, but nothing seems to be working, she said as the lights to the room dimmed as shadows were seen swirling about and slithering to Naruto. Kyuubi, what's happening? Asked Naruto, moving to the cage as the shadows got closer. Fear racked his features and mind as he backed away from the shadows but soon found himself backed up against the cage. Nowhere to run and nowhere to hide, Kyuubi just watched in horror as Naruto was soon encompassed within the shadows. A cry from Naruto was all that broke through the silence from within the blonde's mind. Outside in the real world, Tsunami had left the room to get more water, leaving Naruto alone in the room. The body of Naruto was soon encased in a cocoon of shadows as the same cry from Naruto echoed through the room. The shadows soon began to give off the same chirping sounds as what bats would make as the shadows soon hardened around Naruto's skin. For a few minutes, the body of Naruto was rigid and unmoving. But soon the shadows peeled off with them forming dead bats as they hit the floor, revealing the transformation that had taken place. Naruto's features had changed drastically. His hair was a lighter shade of yellow, almost to the point of being white. The whisker marks were no more while the nails on Naruto's finger were slightly longer but not too long. But the real change was the two objects jutting out of Naruto's mouth. Tsunami was alerted to the sounds of Naruto's screams as well as Kakashi. Both of them ran into the room to find Naruto now sitting on the bed while looking at his body while the dead bats littered the ground. Naruto, are you okay? Asked Kakashi, making the boy look to his sensei. His eyes were no longer blue with life, but a dangerous scarlet red with a slit in them. I'm feeling fine, why do you ask? Asked Naruto, getting up. But when the sun hit him, they watched as Naruto's skin began to burn away. Flakes of skin peeled off his body as Naruto cried in pain and shot away from the window. This only surprised them more as Naruto moved with incredible speed. So fast that it looked like he teleported. But for Naruto, it seemed like a simple move. Looking to the two in the room, Naruto raised an eyebrow as his skin repaired itself. What? He asked. How did you do that? You moved so fast, stated Tsunami. I just moved away from the window. What of it? Asked Naruto. Naruto, are you sure you're okay? Is the Kyuubi taking over? Asked Kakashi. No, she's not, barked Naruto. You may feel fine after some dinner. Soup is for dinner, said Tsunami, heading off. Thanks. I'm so hungry I could eat anything, said Naruto as his stomach growled. Making his way into the bathroom of the house, Naruto looked into the mirror and looked at his features. What he saw was beyond him. His hair was more different, his eyes were a dangerous color of red while his canines were enlarged to the point of slightly sticking out. His nails were now claws and his skin was as pale as the snow. What was this? But as he ran the water, a rather sweet smell invaded his senses. It smelt like roses and chocolate. It smelt so delicious, so pure. Closing the tap and following his nose, he found Tsunami standing there while her finger was in her mouth as blood dropped from the wound while a small bit of blood was seen on the knife. Naruto's eyes were locked on the knife, as Tsunami smiled to Naruto. "I'm okay," she said. "No problem," said Naruto as he looked on. This couldn't be where that smell was coming from, right? Thinking it was nothing, Naruto headed back up to wash up for dinner, but his mind soon drifted back to the blood on the knife. It seemed so alluring, tickling his senses as much as possible while the smell drove him wild. His stomach soon growled as he groaned. "Man, I'm so hungry," said Naruto, placing his hands on his gut. When dinner finally rolled around, everyone sat at the table as Tsunami dished up for them. Naruto noticed that Tsunami had a plaster on her finger from the wound she had. When the food was laid before Naruto, he gave a helping hand of the delicious scent. But for some reason, when the smells flooded his nostrils, he felt like he wanted to throw up then and there. I smelt horrendous, like someone mixed in some old sweaty socks and served it to him. He could even feel it coming up. Keeping it down, he scooped up some soup on his spoon and shoved it in his mouth. That completely threw him for me as he excused himself from the table and sprinted to the toilet. Emptying out his stomach of the horrendous taste, Naruto gained a face of confusion. Everyone else seemed to enjoy the food and ask for seconds, while he couldn't even manage a single spoon of the stuff. Was he still feeling ill? No, he couldn't be. He felt fine. Apart from the feeling of having his skin burn and him in pain from being in the sun, he was feeling like $1,000,000. So what was wrong with him? Making his way to the table and excusing himself, Naruto made his way out the house and into a forest area where he could be alone for a bit. And hopefully think as to what was wrong with him. Stopping once he was deep in the forest, Naruto dropped to his knees and began to cough. Looking to his hand, he found a few bits of carrot and spinach on his hand. Just looking at it drove him to sickness. And once more his stomach growled rather loudly. "Man, I'm so hungry. But for what?" he asked to no one. But as he began to think, a massive surge of pain hit his body. His gut soon began to glow rather brightly as he gritted his teeth from the pain he was experiencing. He watched as a pure orange orb floated out from his gut and form a woman who looked to be in her late 20s. Black flowing hair flowed down her head and stopped at her shoulders. 2 black fox ears on her head and 9 white tails were seen behind her. Her outfit looked to be that of a kimono but was kept in a rather revealing look. And man, did it reveal a lot. Perfect, gravity-defying DD cup and long shapely legs that seemed to go on forever. Her face was heart-shaped and on her lips was some red lipstick. "Who are you?" asked Naruto. "I'm rather hurt. I'm Kyuubi," she stated. "Wait, is that really you?" asked Naruto with Kyuubi nodding. "This is my human form. How I'm outside like this must be because of your new power rejecting me. So it pushed me out. But you may call me Ari," purred Kyuubi, taking in the man before her. "Do you know what's wrong with me? Why I can't eat that food?" asked Naruto, sitting on his haunches. "I think I do know what's wrong with you. From the stories I've learned, from the past and all. It seems you've become a beast of the night. Nosferatu. Or vampire," replied Ari with Naruto raising an eyebrow. "How is that possible? I can't be a vampire," stated Naruto with Ari grabbing some bark and cutting her wrist with it. Naruto's eyes locked with the red liquid flowing from Ari's wrist. And once again, he smelt the delicious scent. But instead of it smelling like roses and chocolate, it smelled more like lavender. The smell was all too intoxicating for Naruto to handle as his eyes soon began to glow. Ari noticed this and used her healing to repair the wound. Instantly, Naruto returned to normal, but his hunger still remained as she heard his stomach growl. This definitely proves it. You're a vampire. And what is happening with you is because you hunger for blood, stated Ari. I'm so hungry, said Naruto, gritting his teeth. Ari merely smiled as she looked to the blood-starved vampire. She used the bark shard and cut her wrist once more and once more. Naruto's eyes began to glow red as he licked his lips inconscientiously. I'll make a contract with you. Right here, right now, said Ari as Naruto looked to her. For my blood, you must be willing to subjugate yourself and become mine. I know that what I'm saying may come as a shock, but I need a mate. Demons tend to mate for life, and I have yet to find my mate. And with mating season coming around the corner for me doesn't help much. Become my mate, and I will give you my blood. Naruto thought it over. He was so hungry, and ever since Ari cut herself with that bark, Naruto felt the urge to feed. Something about that red liquid was all too much for him to handle. Here was Ari, the nine-tailed Biju, offering him her blood, but only if he was willing to become her mate. It seemed rather strange for a contract. But right now, the only thing on his mind was to feed. I accept the contract, said Naruto, with Ari smiling as she walked over to him with a sway in her hips. Kneeling down, she held out her wrist for Naruto. Then drink, my love. Drink and fulfill our contract, she said. Naruto took Ari's hand and sunk his teeth into her skin. Ari winced in pain at the feeling of having Naruto's enlarged canines enter her flesh. Naruto then began to suck. The blood that entered his mouth and flowed past his throat was so enriching, it was amazing. His senses felt so alive as he felt his hunger become no more. Grabbing her wrist more tighter than ever as he soon looked to be getting rather greedy. Ari soon pulled her wrist away from the young vampire and healed the wound while Naruto stared on in ecstasy as he savored the taste of Ari's blood. A small trail of Ari's blood flowed down the side of his mouth, but that was no longer seen as Naruto licked the trail. His eyes changing from a dangerous red back to a warm blue. Now it's time for you to make good on the other part of our deal, said Ari as she took off her clothes to reveal her amazing body to the vampire. A deal is a deal after all, said Naruto as he too got undressed, with Ari pouncing on Naruto. Throughout the forest, moans and screams of pleasure echoed through the area as Naruto and Ari explored one another's bodies rather passionately. After a few hours, the two new lovers put their clothes back on as the sun slowly crept over the horizon. Naruto watched as the sun's rays hit him. Scrunching his eyes shut as he expected the sun to burn him like it did in the house from the window, Naruto found that the sun wasn't even hurting him. Not one bit. Opening one eye, then the other, Naruto found that the sun was not even hurting him one bit. Though his blood boiled in the sun, which was rather painful in its own way, it was at least manageable. Looking to Ari, who put on the last bits of her clothing on, she looked to Naruto. I don't know what is going on here. All I know is that you're a vampire. Maybe if you track down the one who gave you that hickey, you can find out what it means to be a vampire, she said, with Naruto nodding his head. I think that would be best, said Naruto as the two of them walked back to the house, only to find a large blanket of mist blanketing the entire area. What the hell? Asked Naruto, looking about. My love, I feel a strong sense of hatred and chakra in that area, said Ari, pointing to the unfinished bridge. Then that's where we're going, said Naruto as they sprinted. But as they sprinted to the rest of the team, Naruto found himself dispersing into a torrent of bats and reappearing some few feet ahead of Ari. Looking about as he tried to figure out what just happened to him, he began to concentrate. And sure enough, his body broke up into hundreds of bats and reappeared a few more feet away. This could come in handy, said Naruto as he dispersed into bats again and sped to his team, with Ari sprinting alongside the bats that was her lover. Reappearing as the bats took on the form of Naruto, Naruto looked on as he spotted an ice dome-like prison, Sakura protecting Tazuna and Kakashi engaging with an enemy nin with a giant sword. Looking to Ari, he nodded and vanished in a vortex of bats and went in to help Sasuke, which would possibly be the last time. Even though Naruto had just fed, he felt that Sasuke would end up as a corpse by the time he was done with him. Appearing before Sasuke in a vortex of bats, he watched on as Sasuke stood there, shell-shocked at what Naruto had just done. Turning to the many faces in the mirrors, Naruto glared at the person. He was even more pissed off when he saw it was the same Hunter Nin. As his rage began to surge through the roof, so did an unholy energy. Black mist and vapor flowed off his body as he glared at the Hunter Nin with hatred. Licking his fangs as he slowly stepped forward to the mirrors. "Your blood had better taste as good as Ares," chirped Naruto as he charged forward. "So fast," said Sasuke as he looked to see that Naruto moved so fast it looked like he teleported. The mirror shattered into millions of pieces as the mirrors threw needles at Naruto. All connected to Naruto as they punctured his skin, but what happened only became more than what the Hunter Nin feared. The needles were slowly pulled out of Naruto's skin by themselves and were shattered in the air. Slowly looking to the Hunter Nin as Naruto's eyes turned red with hate. The Hunter Nin soon found the cage it had created getting extremely hot as the one above shattered into pieces once more. Spotting something on the one image, Naruto found that the clothing was slightly burnt. No doubt from Sasuke's fire jutsu. But his train of thought was brought out when a needle was sent into his arm. Finding the needle there, Naruto pulled it out but soon found that his blood was flowing away from the wound and into his hand. Seeing his blood form a small ball, Naruto got an idea. Thrusting out his hand after it back, he watched as the blood was launched with accuracy and destroyed the mirror. "Incredible," said Naruto as he gathered up more blood and fired them at the mirrors. The Hunter Nin watched as Naruto destroyed each and every one of its mirrors. With the mirror it was hiding in being the only one left, Naruto charged full force to the mirror. The Hunter Nin got out just in time as the mirror was shattered into a million pieces like all the others. Turning to Naruto only to be grabbed by the throat and lifted up, the mask soon fell to find that the hunter was a girl. "Well, well, well. What an amazing face you have, my dear. Hope your blood tastes as nice as you look," said Naruto, opening his mouth to drink from the person's neck. "I'm actually a guy, you," chirped the nin. "Come again," said Naruto, stopping himself. "I'm a boy, even though I look like a girl," barked the nin. "What is your name?" asked Naruto. "Haku," said the nin. "Well, you are Toby my lunch now. I promise, this won't hurt at all," said Naruto as he brought his fangs close to her neck. But was stopped once again by Haku going through his tragic backstory of his life. Naruto really hated the whole history lesson. To him, this girl was just stalling to not become lunch, but that was when he was reminded by what he went through growing up. How he lost everything and how he never seemed to find anyone that cared for him. Slowly putting him down and calming his desires, Naruto lowered his head. "I see. Then, why don't you come live in Konoha? I'm sure we can place you under supervision. After that you could get enrolled there," said Naruto. "I don't know. Regarding Zabuza, he may decline the offer," said Haku as Naruto soon smelt blood once more. Dispersing in a vortex of bats as Haku shinned away, Naruto reappeared before Kakashi slammed his hand into a severely wounded Zabuza. He grabbed the hand and stopped it then and there while Ari kept a watch over the area to see if anyone would attack. "Naruto, what are you doing?" asked Kakashi. Haku then explained the life of how him and Zabuza lived. But as he told Kakashi, a strange sound of laughter was heard from the other side of the bridge with a large group of people standing there with weapons drawn. The mist jutsu that was active dispersed to reveal them there. "Who the are you?" asked Naruto. "Name's Gato Kid, and this village is mine," said the man as he smiled. "I don't like the vibe I'm getting from you," growled Naruto. "That's because I'm very bad news," chuckled the man. "Kill the men, but leave the women and children. The women can be used for my entertainment. The children can be sold into slavery." That last part, Gato looked over to Ari as he licked his lips while he took in the woman before him. Despite the animalistic feature, she was extremely attractive. "How about it, dear? Want to be mine?" I'll give you a collar, pet you every day and show you a really good time, said Gato with Ari glaring at him. Naruto merely growled as he clenched his fists as his power swirled violently. How dare this bastard try and prove something? Naruto felt his vampiric nature grow more and more with every bit of hatred that seeped out of his body. Ari took note of this and merely sashayed over to Naruto with a sway in her hips. Take them down, my love, she purred as she moved her hair out the way to show her neck to him. Naruto clamped down on her neck and drank a small bit of her blood. Ari merely moaned from the feeling as she ran a hand through his hair. When Naruto was done, he gave her a kiss and sped off to the approaching enemy. It all happened in the blink of an eye. 1 second, the enemy was speeding to them, the next, their heads were gone with Naruto standing there with two heads of two of the thugs. Everyone went wide-eyed at what happened as Naruto dropped the heads and turned to the masses. Let's dance, said Naruto as he charged again. Blood flew everywhere as Naruto unleashed his ungodly speed on the enemy before him. Gato watched on in fear as he watched every single thug he had hired get obliterated by Naruto as he tore them to shreds. Sinking his teeth into one of the thugs, Naruto drained him of his blood, leaving nothing but an empty husk of flesh. Monster! Cried one of the thugs as they tried to stop the person before them. But they didn't even get far as Naruto mowed them down by slicing off the heads as if they were paper, using his blood as a bullet or by a simple bite and drain. With the forces all dead, Naruto turned his attention to the last man being Gato who was struggling to get away. Naruto moved with as much speed as he could master and grabbed Gato before he could get away and threw him onto the concrete and glared at him with his fire-red eyes. Please spare me, he begged. Give me your banking details first, said Naruto. Gato quickly pulled out a piece of paper and scribbled on it and handed it to Naruto. Taking the paper, Naruto crumpled it up and threw it away. You're real one, jackass, growled Naruto. Gato shook with fear as he raised his pen and wrote once more on the paper. Once done, he handed it to Naruto. Naruto looked over the numbers and pocketed it. Thank you for your help, said Naruto as he opened his mouth and sunk his fangs into Gato's neck. Gato screamed and howled in pain as he felt his blood leave his body and into the boy latched onto his neck. He fought back by kicking and punching Naruto, but Naruto kept his mouth secured to the man's neck similar to that of a pit bull with someone's arm in its mouth. After a few minutes of struggling, Gato passed on as Naruto removed his mouth from the man's neck. Not the best blood I've tasted. Let me rephrase that. That is the worst blood I've had. Tastes like rotten apples, said Naruto wiping his mouth of the blood. Getting up and heading to his team, they headed back to Tazuna's house to rest up for a bit with Zabuza falling onto the couch and Haku thanking Naruto and going out to help Tsunami with anything. But as they sat around, Sasuke took in Ari before him. To him, she was everything he ever wanted. A woman with one hell of a rocking body. Walking over to the demon, he got her attention. Can I help you? Hissed Ari. Why not be mine? Stated Sasuke. Try again. I'm already mated to another, said Ari before latching onto Naruto's arm. It wasn't a request. It was an order. You now get on your knees and begin your job, said Sasuke only to find his arm broken by Naruto. Leave my mate alone, you bastard, or I will kill you, growled Naruto. This isn't over yet, growled Sasuke walking away while holding his broken arm. Damn, my love, that was hot. I hope you can show me something hot later on, said Ari licking her lips. Oh, there will be a lot to show you, said Naruto. As I already know, man alive, said Ari licking her lips at how equipped her mate was. Waking up the next morning and heading off back to Konoha once the bridge was done, they arrived at Konoha by midday and headed to the Hokage's office where they were debriefed. Haku and Zabuza were placed under supervision much like how Naruto predicted and ensured they were looked after by Naruto, who showed them his apartment. Zabuza crashed on the couch and Haku took the other room. Ari chose to sleep in the same bed as Naruto and quite frankly, he didn't mind at all. They were an item now. Better start acting like it. Waking up to a bright new morning, Naruto groaned as he felt the sun on his skin, with the sun once more beginning to burn him. Opening his eyes and shooting into a shaded corner, Naruto felt his skin repair once more and the growl of his stomach pierced the space. Clicking his tongue as he found Ari to no longer be with him in bed, Naruto soon heard water running. Walking out after getting dressed, Naruto made his way into the dining room and found Zabuza and Haku in the dining room. Haku was seen making food while Zabuza slouched in the one chair. "Yo Fangs. What up?" asked Zabuza. "Not bad. You haven't told anyone about the fact that I'm a vampire, have you?" asked Naruto, with both of them shaking their heads. "We wouldn't dare. You saved us, so our lives belong to you," said Haku as he finished making breakfast. He then grabbed a glass from the cupboard in the kitchen, grabbed a glass and slit his wrist, allowing the blood to flow into it. When the blood reached the brim, Haku grabbed a plaster and placed it over his wound while Zabuza handed the glass to Naruto as his eyes turned red. "Here Fangs. Drink up," said Zabuza. Taking the glass, Naruto downed it and felt his bloodlust fade away like a simple breeze. Thanking Haku for the blood and finding it tasted like ramen, Naruto turned to find Ari coming out the bathroom with nothing but a towel around her wondrous body while her hair and tails were still slightly wet from the water. "Good morning, Ari. Breakfast is ready," said Haku, setting the plates down for him, Zabuza and Ari. "Thanks, kid. I take it you already gave Naruto his meal," said Ari, with the boy nodding. "I did," said Haku, sitting down. "I'm confused," said Naruto. "Ari here told us of the conditions for living in your house. We are to supply you with blood. That being the first condition. The next one is to keep your new life a secret. You know, the whole vampire thing," said Zabuza as Haku nodded. "I see. Well, I'm heading off," said Naruto. "Whoa, hold on there, Naruto," said Haku, grabbing his wallet and throwing it to Naruto, who caught it. "Take that and buy yourself some new threads. That orange thing is horrible," he said, with Naruto thanking him and heading out. When Naruto left, Zabuza turned to look at Ari, who was happily eating away at the food before her. "You know, as much as I enjoy staying with you. But can you tone down your little sessions down?" asked Zabuza, with Ari looking to him. "Well, there is still more to come," said Ari as she continued eating. Naruto walked down the roads of Konoha. Despite being in broad daylight and his blood boiling so much, he found that everything was more different. He got looks that were not of hate, but of curiosity. But as he moved along the road, his nose picked up something. It smelled like lavenders. It wasn't the smell of blood, this was something else. Quickly darting his head to the side, he spotted some blue hair dart back behind cover. "I'm being followed," stated Naruto to himself as he kept moving. Arriving at a store, Naruto bought some new clothes that were sold to him at a 50% discount due to the owner being number 1, a girl. And number 2, she said he is really cute. Guess his new look was doing its job. What he bought and wore out the store was a plain white short-sleeved shirt, black baggy pants, some combat boots, shin guards, black fingerless gloves, 2 rings with a small needle that could be flicked out, 1 for each middle finger, and a long-sleeved black hooded trench coat. This would help him in the sun. He just prayed that he'd never have to feel that damn thing in the sky anymore now that he had covered up nicely. Making his way to a training spot, he began to concentrate. After that fight he had at Wave, he felt that there was more to his powers. Seeing that he could no longer feel his chakra but this strange new power, he wondered if there was more to it. Starting out small by using that bat thing he did, he vanished in a torrent of bats and reappeared some feet away with the bats coming together to form him. Getting the hang of it a few more times, Naruto found the concept to be rather easy. He had it to the point where he just needed to think of it and voila. Instant bat travel. He named the ability Bats. It was rather cliché seeing that he could vanish and reappear through bats, but it seemed fine for a name. But as he practiced with his new powers, he heard a branch break and Naruto instantly vanished. Appearing behind the one who broke the branch, Naruto glared daggers at who it was, but dismissed it when he saw it was Hinata. You saw me, didn't you? Said Naruto with Hinata stumbling back a bit. I'm sorry. She stuttered. You saw of what I can do. I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to die now, said Naruto as he opened his mouth with his eyes turning red. Hinata stood scared beyond measure as she looked at the fangs that protruded out Naruto's mouth. But for some reason, they didn't scare her that much. But one word from her stopped Naruto altogether. Pretty. She said, making Naruto close his mouth. Pretty. I'm a monster of the night. How is this pretty? Barked Naruto. I don't know. Other than the fact that you're pretty. Everyone is beautiful in their own right, said Hinata with Naruto dropping to his haunches. You're a peculiar one, aren't you? You're not afraid of me then? Asked Naruto with Hinata shaking her head. I read stories with supernatural being in it. This is nothing, said Hinata with Naruto raising an eyebrow. Well, this is new. So, do you even know what I am? Asked Naruto as Hinata nodded her head. A vampire, I think, she said. Well, newsflash, I am a vampire, stated Naruto with Hinata moving the neck of her jacket away to reveal her smooth unblemished skin to the man she was crushing on. Are you feeling hungry? She asked. You're taking this surprisingly well. But I could use a snack, said Naruto as he looked at Hinata's neck and saw the vein through her skin. Well, take some, she said. Naruto held onto Hinata and with great care, bit down on her neck, making her bite her lower lip from the painful feeling. She soon began to moan from the feeling as Naruto began to suck on her blood. Naruto found Hinata's taste of blood to be rather exotic. It tasted like strawberries and cream. This was incredible. Gripping her tighter as he began to suck harder, Hinata felt more in pain as Naruto latched onto her more tighter. Tears soon flowed down her cheeks as the pain got to her. Tapping Naruto on the head, she felt his teeth leave her neck and him shooting away. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you, said Naruto with Hinata walking over to the vampire, wiping the tears from her eyes. Laying a hand on his shoulder, he knelt down to him and smiled to him. It's not a problem. If you ever need to feed, just ask me. But please be careful next time, said Hinata with Naruto looking to her as his eyes turned back to normal. I promise, said Naruto with Hinata smiling to him. Getting up and thanking her for the snack, Naruto headed away and found his team waiting at the bridge. Kakashi had some things to discuss regarding something. Arriving there, he found that Kakashi was late, again. Waiting for a bit while he looked at the clouds, Naruto's mind began to trace back to how he became like this. It hadn't been 3 days since he became a vampire. He had learned quite a bit with regards to his powers, but there was still more to learn. But as they waited, Sasuke walked over to the young vampire with Naruto's eyes locking with Sasuke. What? Hissed Naruto. Give me it, demanded Sasuke. Give you what? Asked Naruto, not liking his attitude. Your power. And that woman. Give me them. I deserve it, barked Sasuke. Nice try, but I can't make such a thing happen, said Naruto looking away. I'm an elite, a living legend. Give me what belongs to me, demanded Sasuke, only to find himself slammed against the railing with Naruto's hand around his throat. What part of, I can't give you it because it was mine to begin with? Don't you understand? I bet your blood isn't even that tasty. I can smell it from here, growled Naruto with his eyes changing red with rage. Let Sasuke go, you weakling. And give him what he demands. You should be honored to be in his presence, shouted Sakura on the top of her lungs, only to find Naruto's hand around her throat. Maybe I should educate you in the difference. Sasuke, I'm like this because of what happened in the past. As for Ari, I can't give you her because she and I are mated for life. As for you, Sakura, I should just drain your blood and then dance on your grave, said Naruto as he slowly opened his mouth, ready to do the deed. Naruto, stop this, said Kakashi, appearing with the vampire, dropping the two and turning to his sensei. Don't you dare back chat me. especially in front of someone who has transcended death itself. You couldn't even hold a candle to me. I will ensure this world burns for what it has done, growled Naruto before slamming his mouth shut. What did I just say? What am I becoming? Thought Naruto before looking to Kakashi. I apologize, said Naruto with Kakashi handing each of them a slip of paper. Take this. These are for the Chunin exams happening a week from now. During that time, you are to train or do whatever you wish of. Report to the academy after the week is up, said Kakashi before shunshining away. Pocketing the slip of paper, Naruto clicked his tongue as he walked away. What did he do? Why did he act in such a way? Why did he feel so angry then? Why did those words flow out his mouth? But as he was thinking it to what happened, an ABNU appeared before him wearing a Neko mask and had purple hair that flowed to the middle of her back. Naruto Uzumaki. You are to report to the council at once, said the Anbu. Okay, said Naruto rolling his eyes and going with the Anbu. When he reappeared, they waited outside the council room as he heard Hiruzen's voice on the other side. He seemed to be in a state of rage. No doubt because the civilian council was plotting something against him yet again. This wasn't the first time he appeared before the council. The first time he appeared here was because he fought back against a person who was after his life. Naruto was only 7 at the time. He was called to see the council then, after he injured the assailant. When they heard Hiruzen's voice on the other side, the two entered the room. But when Naruto stepped through the doors, the smell of wet dog invaded his senses. And man did it put him off, badly. Looking over to Sume Inuzuka, he found that she was giving off the smell. Must be due to the dogs she kept with her. Naruto Uzumaki, you have been called here because of the notion of what happened at Wave. It has come to our attention that you have brought in some wanted nin, said a civilian councilwoman. So what? They've been granted safe haven here, barked Naruto only to have a fat civilian councilman slam his hand on the table. You will know your place, demon. And you will answer our questions. He barked only to have Naruto moved with incredible speed and glare at him. Everyone stared on in shock at what Naruto just did. 1 second he was standing by the ABNU, the next, he was before the councilman. How did he move that fast? No one could keep up. Let's get one thing straight here. I am nobody's pet. I never was, and never will be. As for the question, I already answered it. Dumb. Hissed Naruto with his eyes glowing red. Danzo saw this and raised an eyebrow. Naruto, please calm down. But the other reason why you are here is because you are to be given your inheritance, said Hiruzen holding out a scroll. Snatching it away from Hiruzen, Naruto unraveled it and began to read. When he was done, Naruto handed it back to Hiruzen while a smile graced his lips. So you're giving me my home that belongs to me. Glad to see that, but I also noticed that there was one more thing there, said Naruto with Hiruzen nodding his head. Yes, as it goes to show, you are probably the last Uzumaki in existence. So, by this decree, you have been placed under CRA. You are to take on multiple women to bring back the Uzumaki clan, said Hiruzen. And what if I don't want that? Asked Naruto. Then it is your decision. And we will respect that, said Hiruzen. Adjourning the meeting, Naruto went his own way. But as he walked along the road, Naruto smelt the smell of wet dog yet again. And it seemed to be following him. Heading down a route no one knew of, he vanished in a torrent of bats and appeared right behind the one tailing him. Well, if it isn't Sume Inuzuka acting like a stalker, said Naruto scaring the woman to death. I just wanted to know from you. What happened to you? Why do you seem different? And how did you do that? She asked. So many questions. Come by to my new home, being the one I was given in my inheritance. There I will show you what I am, said Naruto. Agreeing to this, they headed out and went their separate ways. Naruto returned back to his apartment to inform Ari, Zabuza and Haku that they will be moving now. And that he may have shown his power to someone by mistake. Oh well. If they try and tell anyone, they'd die through being bitten. With Danzo walking along the hallways of Root as many Anbu were seen training in the powers stolen. Danzo made his way to a jail cell deep in the heart of Root. When he reached the door, he opened it and walked inside to reveal a woman with long flowing red hair that came to her waist. This woman was perfect in every way. Her body was like that of a model, topped with DD cup and a heart-shaped face. The perfect MILF was what one would describe her as. Danzo knelt down to her and lifted her head. Looks like your son has made quite the power for himself. It doesn't matter. It will belong to me soon. And when it does, there will be nothing left. Cackled Danzo with the woman began to cry. Oh Naruto. Forgive me. I'm so sorry. Sobbed the woman as Danzo left her alone. I just pray that you're okay, she said as her head dropped down. It was now rather late at night while the group waited for Sum to arrive. Ari, Zabuza and Haku recently moved all the stuff they owned into the house, which was a rather large estate. Naruto and Ari took the master bedroom as Zabuza took one room and Haku took another. Telling them that he was placed under CRA came as a rather powerful shock to Ari but not to Zabuza and Haku. The two accepted it as they knew this type of thing was done all the time. But Ari voted against it. She kept telling them that Naruto belonged to her and that was final. It took all three boys to calm down the raging demon that this was necessary and that it was to bring back the Uzumaki clan. Ari still didn't like the idea, but when Naruto told her that he'd still be hers no matter what, it softened her up and she reluctantly agreed to share him. With that mess sorted out, they sat there waiting for Sum to arrive. But they soon knew she was coming as Naruto's nose picked up the smell of wet dog once again. But it seemed more weaker than last time. Opening the door for them, they found not only Sum but also Hana, Sum's only daughter. The two walked in and looked to Naruto. So, what is this whole deal that you needed to talk here? Asked Sum. As you saw in that alleyway, I vanished in a swirl of bats and reappeared behind you. That is what I'm getting to now. Ari, if you would be so kind, said Naruto with Ari walking over to her mate. Drink up, my love, she purred as she moved her hair out the way. Sinking his fangs into her neck as Ari moaned out loud rather lewdly, as Naruto drank the blood from Ari. Taking only a small amount and licking the hickey given to her which healed instantly, Naruto turned to the two women before him. I am what is known as a vampire now, said Naruto. But that's impossible. Vampires don't exist, said Hana. Then why is one standing before you? Asked Naruto as he moved with speed faster than the human eye could register and stood before the Inuzuka. How did you do that? Asked Sum. Due to my transformation into a vampire. I've gained incredible power beyond human means. I can no longer use chakra but have gained something called blood magic as an alternative. I still retain my bloodline as an Uzumaki though, said Naruto as he showed them his fangs. Even if you are a vampire, shouldn't the sun hurt you? Asked Sum with Naruto shrugging his shoulders. The sun is a bastard, I'll say that much. But it is manageable once I'm fed. The sun hurts me the more I don't feed, said Naruto remembering how the sun burned him when he became a vampire. So, what do you know of this power you have? Asked Sum. Not much I'm afraid. All I know is that I can use my blood as a weapon and that I'm insanely powerful and strong, replied Naruto with Sum nodding her head. Well, the reason I'm here is also to do with you being on CRA. I've had a long talk with my daughter here and she has agreed to be one of your wives. We don't aim to gain you as a powerhouse. We just wish to help you, said Sum. Is that it? Queried Ari clearly picking up something from her. Yup, that's it, said Sum only to have Ari snort at her statement. Judging by your pheromones, you want something else, said Ari with Hana going wide-eyed and turning to her mother. Is that true? Asked Hana with Sum blushing as her only means of answering. It is true. You do want something else, added Hana. More like someone else, said Ari as she paid careful attention to Sum. Finding that her eyes were darting to Naruto as her hands fidgeted with one another. Instantly, Ari knew what was going on as a wicked smile graced her lips. Oh, Sum, you naughty girl, said Ari as everyone turned and looked at her. What? Asked Zabuza. Sum here, likes her men younger than her. Oh, you bad girl, said Ari as she walked over to Sum. So, you have a crush on Naruto, it seems, she whispered into the Izunuka matriarch's ear only to make Sum blush harder. Yes, she replied in a whisper as Ari looked at her. Seeing that Naruto is to bring back the Uzumaki clan, I have no reason to not share him. It took some convincing, but I am going to offer you this. I'm offering you a chance to sleep with him. But only when you want to, said Ari as Sum blushed and thanked her. With Hana now staying with the vampire, Naruto got down to business with her in discussing what to do now that she was living here. Rule 1. Began Naruto holding up a finger. Quote. Under no circumstances are you to tell anyone that I am a vampire. Should anyone find out, I will be forced to kill you and the one you told. Understood, said Hana with Naruto raising another finger. In Rule 2, should I ever feel the urge, you are to provide me with blood. I am a vampire after all. And I must feed now and then, finished Naruto. Those terms are acceptable. I agree with those conditions, said Hana. Excellent. Now make yourself at home, said Naruto with them going about their day in the house. Seeing that it was now late at night, they retired to their rooms and went to sleep. Ari and Naruto slept together in the same bed. When morning rolled around, Naruto found Ari not with him but rather a pleasant smell. But then he heard some soft voices outside his door. It was Ari and Hana. Soon the door opened to show Hana in nothing but her bra and panties that were rather lacy and were a nice color of black. You hungry? She asked with Naruto getting out of bed. I'm guessing this was Ari's idea, said Naruto with Hana nodding her head. It was. She said I should make you nice and excited then let you have some blood, said Hana as she squirmed. Relax. I'm not going to force you into anything. Though I am getting a bit hungry, said Naruto smiling to reveal his fangs. Will you please be gentle? I never done this before, asked Hana as she blushed rather hard. I promise, said Naruto as he walked over to Hana and pulled her close to him. Biting onto her neck, he was awarded with a moan as Hana felt Naruto's fangs pierce her flesh and hit right on the vein. She soon felt Naruto draining her a bit of blood. She placed a hand on his head as she pulled him close to her body. Thinking he had enough, Naruto removed his fangs and licked the wound. My thanks, said Naruto as they walked out the room and headed down to find Haku sitting on the couch along with Zabuza as a blood bag was slowly being filled. What are you doing? Asked Naruto. It was Haku's idea. Should we do this, then you have something for the road. Due to there only being 4 of us, production of blood bags will be slow. But seeing that more may join in, it won't be a problem, said Zabuza with the boy nodding his head. Okay, said Naruto as Ari was seen walking in with some orange juice and some cookies. Soon there was a knock on the door. Naruto went to answer it and found Hinata standing there rather happy. Letting her come in, she looked to the people in the home. Hello, she said, making Zabuza and Haku raise an eyebrow. You aren't gonna attack us or question us? Asked Haku with Hinata shaking her head. Why would I? Your business is your own as well as your reasons, said Hinata. That's rather mature, said Haku. I know. Naruto, do you need some blood? Asked Hinata unzipping her jacket and showing him her neck where he bit her previously. Naruto felt his bloodlust surface as he looked to the vein. His mouth soon opened and made his way to Hinata. But as he was about to bite down, Ari stepped forward and hit him on the back of the head through a karate chop. What the hell, Ari? Asked Naruto looking to her. You're getting greedy, Naruto. 1 feeding a day. Should I begin rationalizing you? She barked in an authoritative tone. I'll behave, said Naruto. I went to your apartment and found it empty. When I went to the Hokage's office, he told me that you moved here, said Hinata with Naruto scratching the back of his head. Yeah, sorry about. I wanted to tell you, said Naruto with Hinata shaking his head as she zipped up her jacket. It's fine. As long as you're happy, said Hinata with them heading out. Check you guys later, called Naruto as he closed the door. Such a nice girl, said Zabuza. It had been a week since Hana joined the group and began providing blood to the young vampire to prevent him from going out of control from a lack of blood. With Hinata helping where she could by either letting Naruto feed directly from her, but also donating blood for the vampire through blood packs. Naruto had also learned that when he feeds, he gains a specific power from the person's blood. For instance, when he feeds from Ari, his speed is greatly enhanced, allowing him to move more faster. This speed was also fast enough for Naruto to break the sound barrier. Drinking blood from Haku from a blood bag or glass, Naruto is able to use cherry blossoms to attack people and even create a shield of ice around him. With Zabuza's blood, Naruto is able to create a demonic variant of Zabuza's mist. But this mist was powerful enough to rot the person's skin off and cause massive amounts of pain to the person. Hana's blood allowed Naruto's sense of smell to be heightened beyond compare. Whereas with Hinata's blood, Naruto found he could see further than ever before and see the souls of any person he looks at. But now it was time for the Chunin exams and Naruto was making his way to the exam venue. There he spotted his teammates and they made their way to the venue. Once they were inside, they began to talk with one another. Naruto made his way to Hinata with the two of them having a rather enjoyable talk. But they soon were seated as Ibiki came into view and went over the exam rules. Naruto looked all over the place and found that there were many Junin sitting at the sides of the room while they held clipboards. Learning from Ibiki that these people would be seeing if they cheated or not, they got the test underway. Hinata quickly grabbed something under her and gave it to Naruto. Looking under him, he found a blood bag. Looking to Hinata, he watched as she nodded her head and carried on with her test. Lowering his head to look like he was sleeping, Naruto drank the blood. Feeling his bloodlust that was never there leave, he felt his power stir. But what happened next was something unexpected. Naruto collapsed on the desk and found himself outside his body. The room looked to be in a slow-moving state as the genin all wrote their answers. The entire area around him was red while the people were all black. Moving over to a few people, he recorded their answers and soon returned to his body. Returning to his body, Naruto wrote down the answers that he recorded. Looking around to find that he wasn't caught at all, Naruto used the ability once again. This sure as hell was fun to use. With this, he could scout around the area and find any form of ambushes. Using it, he found that he needed the answers for the last few questions. Looking to Hinata in the corner of his eye, he nodded to her and she leaned back. Using his ability, Hinata watched as Naruto's body dropped onto the table. Finding no form of breathing coming from his body, she soon felt a hand on her shoulder. Of course, this made her get the biggest fright of her life as she activated her Byakugan then and there. Finding an outline of Naruto in his field of vision, she let him read her answers and then watched as the outline of him vanish in Naruto's body move again and write down the answers recorded. She had to ask him what he just did when they leave the exam room. With the time running out, they got the final question underway. Alright maggots. The final question is a rather hard one. If you wish to not take it, by all means, leave. But know that if one leaves, the team goes along with you, said Ibiki in a rather dark tone. Naruto merely smirked as he propped his feet up and leaned back in his seat. That type of scare tactic wasn't going to even work on him. He was after all a vampire. A creature of the night that could bring the darkest dreams down upon you. This was nothing to him. Slowly but surely, people got up and walked out the room. Naruto scoffed at this. Such cowards. After a few minutes, Ibiki told them that they all passed and that they were to move on to the next stage of the exam. Just as they were about to continue, a black blur shot out of nowhere with the black thing unraveling to reveal a banner with Anko standing before the. Alright you worms. Anko, The woman in all of Konoha is here, said Anko as Ibiki peered from behind the banner. You're early, Anko, said Ibiki with Anko looking to the group before her. You've gone soft, Ibiki. Don't worry, I'll get them thinned out even more, said Anko, telling them to meet her at the Forest of Death. Everyone soon got up and walked out the room and made their way to the Forest of Death. As they stood at the gate, Naruto spotted something in the treeline. Something that piqued his interest. But the person vanished behind the tree. Looking to Hinata, who stood next to him, she nodded to Naruto and ensured she kept her eyes open. With the teams getting into their starting points, they got ready. The rules were simple. Survive in the forest while taking a scroll that was not the one you had. A scroll of heaven or earth had to be taken to the center of the Forest of Death in order to complete this stage. Getting ready, Naruto made a mental note to not use his vampiric powers too much. He didn't want to be caught. He knew he was strong, and powerful at that. But something just told him to not show his powers too much. Soon the gun was heard and the teams rushed into the Forest of Death. Speeding down as fast as he could, Naruto used his vampiric speed to speed ahead of the group. He had to find that man. Telling Sasuke and Sakura that he would catch up later, he sped off away from them. Coming to a stop where he saw the man when he was outside, Naruto sniffed the air. He nearly threw up then and there. Man, that is nasty. That smell is bad. I can't even smell the blood. Oh well, guess follow the stink, said Naruto as he followed the scent. Instead of jumping from one tree to the next, Naruto just vanished in a vortex of bats and flew through the trees. With his body broken up into millions of bats, he found that he could send a few this way and that, but they couldn't be too far apart from each other as it would make him feel like his body was being ripped apart. But as long as he could catch up to the man, he was fine. But he soon spotted someone jumping in the path he was going on. Returning to have the bats take his form again, Naruto found it was Hinata. Jumping off the branch, Naruto dispersed into a vortex of bats and reformed right before her, scarring her shitless, which nearly made her fall to her death. If Naruto hadn't caught her, she'd be dead. Damn it, Naruto. Don't do that, hissed Hinata with Naruto smiling to her. Sorry about that, said Naruto as he held her close. I take it you brushed off your team when you entered, said Hinata with Naruto nodding. Yeah, seems you did the same. I thought that I'd help you with this, said Hinata with Naruto smiling to her. Thank you so much, said Naruto as the two headed off in the direction the man went. Naruto used his bat's ability while he kept up with Hinata. Soon they tracked him down and watched from their tree perch. Naruto reformed his body as he looked to the man. Hinata looked to him and held out her hand. Lunch is served, I guess, she said as Naruto licked his fangs. Vanishing in a volley of bats once more, Naruto zeroed in on the man and reappeared before him. The man didn't have time to think as Naruto latched his mouth onto his neck and began to drink up the blood in the man's veins. The blood tasted awful, but man, was Naruto going through his mind? One thing that he soon spotted was a memory of the man as he stood before a woman with blood-red hair, cladded in rags and chained to the wall. She kept muttering his name and repeatedly apologizing for something. There was no mistaking it. It had to be his mother. Searching through his memories again, Naruto found a secret entrance deep in the sewer system of Konoha. So that was why he smelled like shit. Literally. He had to investigate this when he was done here with the second phase. He had to see about this woman who he had a strong feeling was his mother. He had to know. As well, he had to ensure that there was no other prisoners there. He had a feeling that there was. Removing his fangs from the man's neck, Naruto leaned against the tree and threw up the blood then and there. Hinata jumped down to Naruto and ushered sweet words to him as he threw the blood up. What did you see? She asked. A woman. I think she is my mother. She kept saying my name and kept apologizing. Not only that, but a secret entrance in the sewers of Konoha, said Naruto with Hinata nodding her head. I know you have to do this. But first, You must need something to wash that horrible taste from your mouth, said Hinata as she opened her jacket and showed her neck to Naruto. The bite marks she had were healed up rather nicely. But that wasn't going to be the case here anymore as Naruto clamped his mouth onto Hinata's neck and began to drink from her. Keeping his mind focused on not causing pain to her, Naruto drank a nice helping of blood before removing his fangs from her neck and thanking her for the meal. Both of them went their separate ways to return to their teams. Naruto found them easily as he used his vampiric speed while Hinata tracked her team with her Byakugan. With the vampire that bit Naruto, the raven-haired beauty could be seen draining a victim of blood as she sat there in a dark alleyway of Konoha as she drained a person of his blood. This victim she easily seduced using her body. Seeing that she had a rocking body to begin with. Removing her fangs from the man's neck, she walked out and wiped away any traces that she was a vampire. Her red eyes dyed out to be a beautiful emerald green once more. As she walked about the streets of Konoha, she began to think on how she was going to keep that man's mouth shut. She did think about running away from the village, but stopped herself when she realized that she injected her venom into the man. Should it play out, her venom would kill the man easily. Her venom was quite potent. But if there was any slim chance that he would survive, then he'd become a nightlord vampire like she was. But that was such a rarity now. Plus, the more ethical way to turn someone was to give vampire blood to the person and them drink it. After that, kill the person and poof. Instant vampire. But seeing that should you give a human the blood of a vampire, the person becomes a lesser vampire when they turn. Making that vampire a subordinate to the one who turned him, her. But as she walked past some people, ignoring the lustful stares she got from them, she overheard a conversation. Hey, did you hear? Apparently the demon brat attacked a councilman, said a woman. Nah, I heard he moved so fast, he ripped him apart. No one could see his speed. Lord Hokage said it was so fast, the Sharingan may not even keep up, said another woman. I heard his eyes turned color from warm blue to demonic red when he lost his temper, said a woman. Ducking into an alleyway to think, the raven-haired vampire began to think. It was impossible. How was this even possible? Her venom was potent beyond compare. It should have killed him. She was certain of that. How was he still alive? But then it hit her. Oh, she said as she sped away, hoping to track him down. If what they said is true, then I just created a nightlord vampire. A vampire who is on par with my own ranking and strength. This is bad. If he can't control this power, then the existence of the vampire will be gone for good, she said as she moved through the village to track him down. Finding his team hiding behind some bushes looking over some shinobi, Naruto reappeared in a vortex of bats before jumping down by them. What up? Asked Naruto, making them turn to him. Where were you? Barked Sakura. Had to take a shit. Lied Naruto. Whatever, we've found a team that has the scroll we need, said Sasuke looking over the bushes. But out of the blue, the people they were tracking attacked them. Or more like it was one person rather than three of them. Turned out the other two were just illusions. The three of them jumped away as a snake shot out of nowhere. Naruto was hit away and flew into a tree before dropping down to the ground, hit rage growing after what just happened. All his mind could think of was that he was a vampire. How could such a thing happen? Why did it turn out this way? Why was he swatted away so easily? The man turned to Sasuke as a smile graced his lips. Ah, the last Uchiha. How marvelous, he said as he slowly walked over to Sasuke. Don't you dare, growled Naruto, getting up only to find a rather large snake looking over to him. Before Naruto knew it, he was swallowed whole by the snake. The group stared on as they watched the snake swallow and then curl up and go to sleep. With that out of the way, the man turned to Sasuke as he reached to his face and pulled it down to reveal a hideous yellow eye. Instantly, Sasuke and Sakura found themselves witnessing their own deaths. It was horrifying to say the least as they stood, petrified in fear. Unable to move. My name is Orochimaru. And I have a rather nice present for you, Sasuke. He cooed as he made a hand sign and walked to Sasuke. But as he got close to Sasuke, the snake that was sleeping soon began to shake as the sounds of bats squeaking pierced the air. Sasuke snapped out it along with Sakura when the sound invaded their hearing as all three looked to the snake. Instantly, out of nowhere, the snake exploded as Naruto stood there. A vortex of bats encompassing his body as a black aura flowed violently around him. His eyes were a pure blood red as his nails grew into claws. But it didn't end there. Naruto soon began to clutch his chest as he felt a rather hot and stinging sensation burst through his body. And out of nowhere, Naruto's body exploded as blood went everywhere as his body took on a rather evil appearance. His ears became slightly longer, wings grew out his back as his fingers became 3 along with his feet becoming web-like along with his teeth becoming sharper. His skin also became extremely pale. A roar of an unholy kind erupted from his lips as he soon began to hover as a red energy flowed off his body. An vampire lord from Skyrim. Orochimaru stared on in horror as he stared on at Naruto. What the hell did this boy become? He looked like a demon. Probably even more worse than a demon. Like a creature out of a living nightmare. What the heck are you? Growled Orochimaru. His only answer was when the creature sped so fast he didn't see it coming. Naruto stood opposite Orochimaru, an arm in his clutches as his eyes were fixed as if he was in a trance. Orochimaru howled in pain as he clutched the stub where his arm should be. Looking to the monster as it tossed away the arm, he found fear grip him like nothing he ever experienced before. Such power. Thinking it would be wise to not take on this monster, Orochimaru made a tactical retreat, just as a woman with raven hair and emerald green eyes came into the picture to find Naruto in this state. She clicked her tongue as she clicked her knuckles. Finally found you. Not good. Looks like you've already awakened your vampire mode, she said as wings burst out her back and her eyes shifted to red. Naruto merely roared as he charged at the woman before him, but he found himself knocked away and slamming into a tree. Sasuke and Sakura couldn't even keep up as they watched Naruto get out from the tree and charge at the woman before them. Thinking he could taste their movements and copy them, Sasuke activated his Sharingan. Imagine his hatred when he found he still couldn't keep up. But to Seraphim, she was fighting someone who was in a hell rage. She had seen this before. But she had to stop him from going on a killing spree. Deciding to end this now, she grabbed the hand that came her from Naruto that was intended to strike her down, she twisted and pinned Naruto beneath her as she created a sword out of leaves. Calm yourself, new blood. No one is going to hurt you. Stop this madness. She ordered as Naruto thrashed around while under her. Naruto continued to thrash, but soon his thrashing about began to die out as he calmed down and his body turned back to normal, with the woman going in for a bite of blood. Getting off the vampire and licking the small trickle of blood that trickled down her lips, the woman looked to the 2 others there as she vanished in a swirl of leaves that looked nothing like a shunshin. What the heck was that? Asked Sakura looking to Sasuke. They're strong. Like watching 2 powerful forces clashing for dominance. Incredible. That power should belong to me. Growled Sasuke as they picked up Naruto only to find a gift on the ground. It was the scroll they needed. Taking it and heading to the tower in the middle, they solved the riddle and had Naruto placed into a bed with Naruto staying as motionless as possible. Or should it be said that he was motionless? As if he was dead. Looking at how creepy Naruto lay there, Sakura turned to Sasuke who stood at the doorway. You will always be better than him, she said as Sasuke's expression turned sour. That power. I deserve it. Not him. I do. Growled Sasuke before storming off. With the raven-haired vampire coming to a stop that she saw in the memories she saw through Naruto's blood, she found the house easily. Walking over to the house, she knocked onto the door. Haku opened the door as he gazed at the goddess before him. She was absolutely stunning. As if Kami herself came down to earth. Can I help you? Asked Haku with the girl walking in. Where is the vampire's mistress? barked the woman with Haku closing the door. Upstairs, said Haku with Zabuza looking to the woman as he sat there, filling up another blood pack for Naruto to feed from. Haku went up the stairs as he went to call Ari. After a few minutes, both Ari and Hana could be seen walking down the stairs as they looked at the raven-haired beauty before them. "You wanted to see me?" asked Ari, stopping before the woman. "I did. My name is Seraphim. I am a vampire, much like your mate," said Seraphim. "Then that would explain you've been acquainted with the man who is my mate," said Ari with Seraphim folding her arms. "That's not even why I'm here. I don't care if he's so good in bed. All I care about is his training. That power will consume him. He needs to be trained," barked Seraphim as Ari's eyes widened. "It was you. The one that bit him. I can't say that I like your methods. But why did you do that?" hissed Ari. "It was an accident. I didn't mean to turn him into a nightlord. But sadly, he is one right now. He must control this power. I will train him. If not, then my race will become extinct for good. This," said Seraphim with Ari lowering her head. "Naruto has been struggling on occasions to learn this power. And seeing that you're the one that turned him, I say you do it," said Ari in defeat. "Excellent, it's decided. I shall live here," said Seraphim. With Naruto slowly opening his eyes as he sat up while a groan escaped his lips, Naruto got out the bed and found his team nowhere to be found. Slowly walking out the room, Naruto stumbled slightly as he used the wall as support. His vision slightly blurry as he stumbled through the corridors. In his vision, despite being blurry, red veins pulsed through them. He could sense and smell the blood of those around him. His stomach growled as he groaned at how he had nothing to feed on. Spotting a band of sunlight that burst through the window, Naruto stumbled away from it as he soon bumped into Tamari, the Suna Kunoichi that was partaking in the exams as well. Tamari spun around as she glared at the person behind her. But before she could voice her protest, Naruto, without warning, bit down on her neck and began to drain her blood. Tamari's eyes shot open as she felt her blood leave her and flow into this creep's mouth. Naruto felt his bloodlust die out and his vision returning to him as he removed his fangs from her neck. Naruto felt rather ashamed for doing that to her and apologized before moving away from her. But soon felt his hand be grabbed by her as she held eyes of wonder and confusion. "What did you just do?" she barked to the man before, which was rather cute to her. "I'm sorry. I was just rather hungry. Please forgive me," said Naruto. Tamari soon pieced it together. This guy was hungry, and seeing that he's now satisfied from the bite he gave her only spelt one thing. She too was into the supernatural much like Hinata. She was curious and fascinated by it as well. "Are you a?" she trailed as she brought her lips to his ear. "Vampire." Naruto feared that he may have been compromised on how he was a vampire. Getting ready to bite her and drain her completely, he backed up from her as he bared his fangs. Tamari threw her hands up as she shook her head. "I'm not going to tell anyone. I swear," she said. "I don't believe you," growled Naruto. "I've had a strong curious nature for the supernatural. My favorite is vampires. Please, are you a vampire?" she asked. Sensing to see if she was telling the truth, Naruto found that she was. Removing any hostility to her, Naruto nodded his head. Tamari was completely blown away. All her life, she had a deep fascination for the vampire. And now that Naruto confessed that he was one, only showed that it was real. Vampires did exist. This was incredible. "How did you become one?" she asked. "I was bitten by a vampire for no reason. She injected something into me and the next thing I knew, I was a vampire," said Naruto, giving her a summarized version of how he became a vampire. "Is there a cure?" asked Tamari. "I don't think there is one," said Naruto. "But why did you attack me out of the blue like that?" asked Tamari. "I'm sorry for that. I didn't mean to bite you like that. I was just really hungry. Which I don't understand. Because before I transformed, I was fully fed," said Naruto. "Transformed?" questioned Tamari. "I don't even know that myself. A lot remains as unknowns for me, said Naruto. Either way, I'm glad I met a real vampire. Everything I've read is now true. Thank you. And I swear, I will keep your secret hidden, said Tamari before walking away. Man, I should find out what the hell I just did, said Naruto before he himself walked off to find his team. With the second stage of the exams now completed, the teams that had been thinned out by exactly half were now taken into a hall where they'd be doing a 1 versus 1 match-up by random selection. Many names came through the screen and stopped on 2 names. Naruto didn't even watch the screen. His mind was occupied on too much. For one, he clearly remembered he was fully fed thanks to Hinata giving him some blood when he killed that man after drinking his blood and throwing it up. But when he transformed, he was blood-starved when he turned back to normal. Then there was that raven-haired woman. She stopped him from going on a rampage. But what she did made him think. Sure, it was the same one that bit him, but there was something even more than that. He felt like there was a connection. Like there was a huge amount of information he was missing. Like a puzzle piece is missing preventing from this to be complete. And then there was the memory of that man he drained completely. That memory of that woman apologizing and calling his name. What the heck was going on here? His mind was so occupied that he failed to notice it was now into the 4th match already and he was facing up against Kiba. The Inuzuka jumped over the railing while Naruto merely walked down the stairs. Not even bothering with the fact that Kiba was even throwing snotting remarks at him for how much of a weakling he was. And how he was going to wipe the floor with Naruto. Naruto just scoffed at this statement as he imagined Kiba trying to take him down. Clearly Kiba didn't know anything about the power of a vampire. Once Naruto was standing opposite Kiba, Genma told them to begin. Look at you. You don't even so strong. I'd love to show you what power is, said Kiba arrogantly. That's rich coming from you. Clearly you don't even know what true power is, said Naruto as a hand moved to be over his face. Closing eyes only to shoot them open 3 seconds after, Kiba found himself standing before a large torrent of bats as they chirped and screeched at him. Their dangerous red eyes, hungry for the blood that coursed through his veins while Naruto moved to Kiba while in his vampire mode flew over to him. Kiba dropped to the floor as Akamaru trembled in fear at what they both just saw. There was no way that was real. Yet it felt like it was. So much power it wasn't even funny. Genma and everyone looked at the scene before them while Gaara merely shook in fear but only slightly. Mother is afraid, said Gaara making his siblings look to him. That can't be good. For this kid to make Gaara afraid like that, shows that this guy ain't around, said Kankuro as Tamari nodded. That's power, right there, said her hand traveled to where Naruto bit her. Naruto merely walked to Kiba similar to how a wolf does with its prey. Kiba's eyes were glued to Naruto's glowing ones. It was incredible. This intense feeling of absolute fear radiated from Naruto's every pore as he kept his eyes locked with Kiba's. But Kiba soon steeled himself and decided to fight back against this creature. Popping a pill and feeding one to Akamaru, they attacked Naruto. Both were seen drilling towards Naruto as they attacked with everything they had. But Naruto wasn't having any of it. This was such a game to him. Why not play with your food? Grabbing Akamaru and Kiba, Naruto threw them so hard they crashed into the wall under the balcony. Turning to them, Naruto created a few wind slicers in the air. Thanks to Temari's blood, he could do that. Firing a few at Kiba, he watched as the Inuzuka jumped out the way, only to find Naruto already in the air. Too slow, said Naruto as he backhanded Kiba into the ground. Kiba instantly slammed into the floor as a massive crater burst through the area. Naruto merely dropped down as he folded his arms and walked away. Such a shame. And here I was hoping you be a better challenge for me, said Naruto only to turn and see Kiba struggling to stay on his feet. I will beat you, barked Kiba as he saw Akamaru laying to the side. Naruto merely shook his head as he sped to Kiba and grabbed his neck, lifting him up into the air and began to squeeze. I don't think you realize the situation you're in. I am not to be messed with. I am more powerful than you. I could very easily snap your neck should I choose it, said Naruto as his eyes grew a more stronger red as Naruto bared his fangs. Stop this, said Hiruzen. Why should I? Barked Naruto. Please stop this, asked Kurenai as she shunned Shin to be before Naruto. Red eyes met with demonic red eyes. Naruto took in the woman before him as he rather enjoyed the sight her was seeing, licking his lips as he took a nice helping hand of the scent of her blood. Oh wow, such a rather delicious scent. Grapes. Delicous, said Naruto making Kurenai arch an eyebrow. Throwing Kiba down, Naruto walked off as Genma called the match. Leaning against the railing, Naruto began to have a nice conversation with Hinata. But as the two talked, the screen flashed up and showed two names. Neji and Hinata. This was bad. Naruto knew the branch family had a rather strong grudge against the main family. Something about some trivial bullshit that Naruto didn't care for. Warning Hinata to be careful, he wished her luck as he looked at the match. As he watched the match, he found that Kurenai was approaching him. Standing before the vampire, she whispered into his ear. Why did you say that I smell like grapes? She whispered. Oh, that was the smell of your blood. It smelt like grapes, said Naruto licking his lips. Are you into S&M like Anko? Asked Kurenai, worried that Naruto may have been infected by the snake Junin. Naruto merely chuckled as he shook his head. Not even close. In fact, I'd be willing to show you sometime. But you must keep it a secret, said Naruto looking to the match. He found Hinata on equal ground with Neji, but the boy had a rather dark side to what was happening. These matches were meant to be about proving strength. Naruto could sense some personal tension in the situation. His suspicions were confirmed when Neji gave a strike to Hinata's lung, making her cough out a bit of blood. His teeth grinded against each other as how this bastard attacked his woman. How dare he? But seeing Kushina fight back but with more power, Naruto found her to be rather on par with Neji once more. She had come so far with everything. Naruto was proud of her. But he soon went wide-eyed as he gasped in shock when Neji made a move and struck her heart this time. You don't even deserve such a name. You're a disgrace to our family. You're a disgrace to the Hyuga name. You don't even know what it means to have a person you cared for ripped from you. Of course you don't. Why should you? You look down on everyone, hissed Neji, giving Hinata blow after blow to her chest. Hinata cried out in pain as blood flowed out her mouth. That was it. Naruto vanished in a vortex of bats and was instantly standing between Neji and Hinata, Neji's hand in Naruto's hands. His eyes glazed with hatred as Naruto stared at Neji. Enough, growled Naruto with Neji scoffing. This doesn't concern you. I suggest you leave before you get hurt, said Neji, only for Naruto to remain unfazed by the threat. You do realize you're talking to someone far beyond your own understanding. I outrank you in every way, barked Naruto. As if. You don't even have the power to take me down, hisses Neji, only for Naruto to begin squeezing the wrist of Neji. Neji cringed and whimpered as how Naruto was crushing his wrist. Dropping to one knee, Neji begged Naruto to let go. But Naruto kept his grip strong and continued to put pressure on the wrist. It wasn't long until several Junin came and stopped Naruto by holding kunai to his throat. Naruto, stop this, ordered Kakashi. Why should I? He hurt Hinata. I do not tolerate such insolent behavior, growled Naruto. Please Naruto, release him, asked Hinata from behind her vampire crush. Slowly letting go of Neji, who took his slightly damaged wrist into a hand, Naruto turned to Hinata and laid a hand on her as a smile graced his lips. I will do anything for you, said Naruto as Hinata collapsed into his arms, blood flowing out her mouth. Shooting as fast as he could, Naruto sped to a hospital to look at her and see if she was okay. While he was away, they began to draws for the final matches. Seeing that Naruto wasn't around, they found his number was to be number 1. While Neji got a number 2. Looks like they'd be versing each other in the finals. When Naruto arrived at the hospital, he placed Hinata on a bed and pulled open her jacket to see what was wrong with her. As he assessed her, the door slid open to reveal Seraphim standing there. She leaned against the door as she looked from the one on the bed to Naruto. "There is a way to save her," said Seraphim with Naruto spinning on his feet to look at her. "How? Tell me," ordered Naruto with Seraphim walking over to Naruto. "Your blood is actually a saving grace. But it is permanent. No switches. But it must be her option," said Seraphim, laying a hand on Hinata with her eyes slowly opening. "There is a lot of damage done to you by the one you fought against. You will die seeing he struck your heart. There is a way to save you," said Seraphim. "How?" asked Hinata. "Naruto feeds you his blood," said Seraphim. "I can do that?" asked Naruto with Seraphim nodding her head. "By feeding a human the blood of a vampire, the human becomes a vampire. But seeing that it is the blood of a vampire and not the venom, you will become the one who turned you. You will become his underling. A subordinate," said Seraphim. "Just feed her my blood." "That's it?" asked Naruto with Seraphim nodding. "That's it. I'll get a blood pack ready," she said, walking out. "It's your choice, Hinata," said Naruto as Hinata placed a hand on his cheek. "Do it," she commanded. Biting his wrist, Naruto held it out for Hinata. Placing her lips over the wound, Hinata drank up the blood given to her and instantly, her body felt hot. So hot in fact that she brushed Naruto's arm away rather fast as she began to cough up some blood, followed by her no longer moving. The door slid open to reveal Seraphim standing there with 3 blood packs. One for her, one for Naruto and one for the soon-to-be vampire. "Congratulations. You've just made a vampire," said Seraphim as they waited for Hinata to move. "How long until she wakes up?" asked Naruto. "A few minutes, hours. It varies from person to person," said Seraphim. A few minutes went by and Hinata soon breathed in rather sharply as she surged to be sitting on the bed. But her skin soon began to burn while her face scrunched from the pain. Shooting into a corner, she watched as her skin repaired itself. Her eyes were still their standard lavender color, but now had a slight red to them. Seraphim walked over to the vampire fledgling, and handed her the blood pack. Hinata took it and found it smelt so delicious. She downed it instantly. And just like that, her transformation into a vampire was complete. However, her eyes stayed as they were with the red tint in them. "Welcome to the vampire life," said Seraphim. Hinata slowly got up and smiled to Naruto, but then realized that she could no longer supply Naruto with blood, seeing that she was now a vampire. Hanging her head, she made her way to Naruto. "I'm sorry. I can no longer supply you with blood," said Hinata, reading up that once a human becomes a vampire, feeding is no longer on the table for the one who turned them. "That's no problem," said Naruto, slinging an arm around her and bringing her close to him. "But thank you for saving me," said Hinata, smiling to him, showing him her fangs. "No problem," said Naruto, giving a smile as well. "This is all touching and shit. But seeing that you've got a month to get trained up, I'm gonna be teaching you how to control your powers as a vampire," said Seraphim with Naruto shaking his head. "I want to first find the woman calling my name. Then you can train me," stated Naruto, only to be slammed against the wall by Seraphim. "You'd rather abandon your training over some bitch you know nothing about? You'd be going against vampire laws. The only time you save someone is if you wish to have them as a mate, or an underling," snarled Seraphim with Naruto breaking from the hold. "I'd rather do the one thing I know. Save her. I don't give a shit about training. It's been eating me away. I am going to save her," growled Naruto. "You're making a grave mistake," hissed Seraphim. "Check for the worry in my eye," retorted Naruto before jumping out the window. Making his way into the streets of Konoha, Naruto looked around and found headed to a sewer entrance. The thought of what he would find down there kept playing in his mind. He didn't know what to expect at all. But he kept his mind strong and opened a manhole to the sewers. Jumping down into the sewer, Naruto found he could see rather well in the dark. Must be because of his vampire powers. Using the man's memories as a map, Naruto followed the path that the man took and soon came to a dead end. Reaching out, he found a brick that was slightly pushed out. Pushing it in, he smiled as a clicking sound echoed through the sewers as a secret entrance opened up. Walking in, he found a large underground area that was rather impressive. Walking over to the railing, Naruto peered down and found it went up for miles. How deep does this thing go? He wondered. But he soon heard the sounds of people muttering, and then shout out when they spotted him. Vanishing in a vortex of bats, Naruto appeared before them and drained them of blood. Dropping the last man, Naruto found that this underground base was actually called Root. A group of Anbu trained under Danzo to be loyal pets to him and him alone. Not only that, but many sinister experiments were conducted here as well. Trying to fuse cells with others to create the perfect soldier in a sense. The idea sickened him beyond compare actually. But it didn't end there. From what he saw in the one guy's memories, he found that the woman begging for forgiveness from Naruto was being used to supply cells to Danzo in order to create a powerful soldier. Not only that, but Danzo was actually planning to now create the perfect soldier through her. And the way he was planning on doing it was by having every Root Anbu rape her one by one. Should she conceive, the raping will stop. But continue again once she has given birth. Such an idea of a woman being defiled like that absolutely drove him over the edge. So much so, that Naruto didn't realize it until it happened, when he found himself already in his vampire mode. He had to get to her now. Or she will end up an empty husk, raped constantly by many men en route. Shooting off as his wings flapped behind him making his speed even faster, he made his way down the halls and levels of Root. With Danzo sitting at his desk that was right at the bottom of the base, Danzo signed the papers he had before him. Such an idea of doing that to Kushina never crossed his mind until now. It was perfect. Have her become pregnant with one of the dozens of men en route. Use the child as a weapon for him to use as he saw fit. Repeat until she either dies, or can no longer conceive. He'd be the first to break her in. Seeing that the time was right, he head out the room and to Kushina's cell. But little did he know, was that he had an intruder. And it was in the form of a vicious, angry vampire. Opening the cell door, he made his way inside as he took off his clothing to reveal his body to Kushina who hung her head as she contemplated on how this happened. All she remembered was giving birth to Naruto. The next she was here. Her cells and DNA ripped tortuously from her body. Looking up she saw Danzo standing there as he jacked himself off, getting hard from her as a smile plastered his face. Get ready you demon. Because you're gonna give Root more soldiers right now. Said Danzo as Kushina backed away, but couldn't as the shackles refused this. No, don't. Please I beg you. I'll do anything. She begged as her feet thrash about, desperately trying to move away from Danzo. Oh you will do it. Anything for me and Root. Should you no longer be able to conceive. You'll just be used as a cum-dump. Said Danzo as his member stood proudly before Kushina. Which wasn't that big at all. No, I don't want that. Please, don't do it. Begged Kushina as images of herself being filled with many other men's cum sent shivers down her spine from the thought. Get ready. Here I go. Said Danzo as he stood over her and unshackled her but not before putting on chakra suppressants on her along with strength resistors. No. Naruto. She cried as Danzo lifted her up and positioned himself behind her. But as he was about to plunge himself into Kushina's, a Root Anbu came into view and bowed to Danzo. Danzo clicked his tongue at how his fun was ruined before turning to the man. What? Can't you see I'm busy? Barked Danzo. I'm sorry Lord Danzo, but we have an intruder. Said the ABNU. Then get rid of him. I'm about to grow Root. Said Danzo. That's the thing, we've sent countless forces at the thing. But it just keeps vanishing into a volley of bats. And before we know it, 3 to 7 Root ABNU are dead before it. said the root Anbu. Tisk. Then try and slow him down. I'm getting ready here to this demon, barked Danzo with the root Anbu moving away to carry out his orders. I hope you scream in pleasure, said Danzo as he brushed his past Kushina's lower lips. Kushina shuddered from the feeling as a lone tear fell down her cheek as to what was about to befall her. With Naruto. With the vampire now in his vampire mode, Naruto was rather pissed off. He was wasting time. These guys were obviously slowing him down by a large amount. He had to get to Kushina now. Or else it was too late. He didn't know why he was doing this other than the fact that he had to. Like some unseen force was making him do this. Like he had to find and keep her safe. Thinking enough was enough, Naruto dropped down from his hovering form to now be on the ground. Naruto soon slammed his hands on the ground as a roar escaped his lips. From the stone ground emerged something never seen before. It was completely made up of the ground itself as rocks floated everywhere as it looked to the forces before it. Pointing at the root Anbu before him, Naruto commanded the beast to attack them. And attack it did. Leaving the rock beast to handle this, Naruto vanished in a vortex of bats once again and sped down further and further. Time was of the essence. His very body was on such a high with the amount of blood in the air and the amount of adrenaline coursing through his veins. But rage was also being mixed into the equation as Naruto moved more and more faster. Reforming back to be in his vampire mode again, Naruto slammed into the ground as he flew over to the cell that housed Kushina. When he arrived he saw two things. The first was Kushina being in tears. The next was Danzo who was behind her howling in laughter as he thrusted in and out of her. This of course drove Naruto into a hell rage as he sped and grabbed Danzo, pulling him off Kushina and throwing him through the cell wall. Not into it, through it. Bricks and rock went everywhere as Danzo coughed out a lot of blood when he came to a skidding halt a few feet away from the cell of Kushina. Turning around as she hid her body, Kushina soon felt fear grip her as she stared at the monster before her. A 7-foot-tall beast that was out of her deepest nightmares stood there, looking at Danzo as its wings beat a bit before folding again. The beast then turned to Kushina and knelt down. Kushina turned away from the beast as she couldn't bear the thought of looking it in the eyes in fear of losing her mind should she. Please, don't hurt me, she cried. Naruto merely stared at her. He knew his vampire mode was terrifying. But to do this was on another level. Seeing that she was in the process of being raped, it was understandable as her fear was on a new level when he made himself known. How dare you interrupt me in my session? You will pay for this, trailed Danzo as he looked at the brick and stone wall he was thrown out of. How in the world? That wall was meant to be unbreakable. It was even infused with chakra, he stated as Naruto came out from the cell and glared at him. Hurt her, started Naruto. You pay. And just like that, Naruto vanished and reappeared before Danzo and kicked him in the ribs. A loud snapping sound echoed across the area as Danzo was sent, rocketing into the wall of the base. Naruto soon reappeared before Danzo and grabbed him a second time. Throwing him high into the air, Naruto flew after him. Once he was high enough, Naruto punched Danzo in the gut, sending him into the ground as a massive crater was made upon impact with the ground. What are you? Asked Danzo, struggling to get back onto his feet. Naruto stayed silent as he used his wings and hovered to Danzo. Soon, Danzo felt fear like never before. In all his days, the old Warhawk never felt fear before. Up until now, this monster before him was like a monster that came from the very depths of hell itself. Crawling backwards as Naruto stood over him, Danzo began to think on how to get out of this. Please, spare me. I'll do anything. Just don't hurt me, begged Danzo. Hurt her, said Naruto again. You pay. Grabbing Danzo by the throat, Naruto lifted him up to where his feet were dangling off the floor. Danzo choked as he struggled to break free from the iron grasp of the vampire before him. Naruto reached out and grabbed the man by the head and pulled. Instantly, as if ripping paper, Danzo's head was removed from his shoulders. Danzo, of course, died instantly. Dropping the body and not even wanting to bother with draining the blood, Naruto howled in victory as he soon transformed back to normal with steam flowing off his body as he took on his human form once more. Shaking his head at how woozy he was after going into vampire mode, Naruto made his way back into the cell where he found Kushina sitting there as she shook in fear. Easy. I'm not going to hurt you, said Naruto throwing his hands in the air. I don't believe you, said Kushina with a hiss. Relax, I'm here to save you, said Naruto as he knelt before her. Kushina took in the man before and instantly felt like she was seeing a ghost. Minato? She asked with Naruto shaking his head. No, sorry, I'm Naruto, he said with Kushina going wide-eyed. Naruto, you're okay. But how? What was that? She asked only to find herself being scooped up in Naruto's strong arms while she was laying in them bridal style. Rather ask the questions when we're out of this place, said Naruto as he used his strength to rocket them straight into the air with them landing on a platform. My name is Kushina, your mother. My son, she said as a tear rolled down her cheek at how she was reunited with her son. Nice to meet you, said Naruto as he continued to jump up to the top where he came in. Arriving at the house and opening the doors, Naruto walked in and found the usual sight of two people giving blood. But this time instead of Haku and Zabuza, it was Ari and Hana. Welcome home, said Hana before both of them looked to the woman in Naruto's arms. Who's this? Asked Ari. This is Kushina, my mother, it would seem, said Naruto setting Kushina down on her feet and him taking off his coat and throwing it over her. But how is that possible? Kushina was presumed dead during the attack of Ari. Said Hana. Uzumakis can survive a lot. I was in a lot of pain after having Kyuubi removed from me, but I blacked out soon after that. The next thing I knew, I was in a cell in Root, and about to be raped by Danzo and his Anbu to produce more Root Anbu. If my son hadn't intervened, I'd have had my mind broke from being raped by so many men, said Kushina. I was wondering where you had gone off to. I remember seeing a man grab you while I was being sealed into my mate, said Ari with Kushina arching an eyebrow before gasping in shock. You're. She trailed with Ari nodding her head. Yes, my old jailer. I'm Kyuubi. My real name is Ari. And I'm Naruto's mate, said Ari with Kushina looking to her son. You're mated to Kyuubi, she said with Naruto shrugging his shoulders. She gave me a deal. Her blood, for me being her mate. I was hungry at the time, said Naruto with Kushina arching an eyebrow. That's another thing I want to know. What was that form you took when you rescued me? And what do you mean by blood? Asked Kushina as Seraphim appeared in a flurry of leaves. Simple really. Your son here is a vampire. Or better yet, the highest ranking of vampire you get. A nightlord, said Seraphim as Naruto scolded the one who turned him as Hinata came down the stairs and saw the scene before her. Why are you here? I thought you said you won't train me, barked Naruto with Seraphim smiling as she placed a hand on her hip. Oh that, I was simply testing you. See, vampires share one rule among us. Regardless of what rank you are. Never abandon family. Should you have chosen to be trained without going to save this woman, I've told you to die in a hole. But you passed it because you followed the rules set by vampires. Well done. Congratulated Seraphim. I see. So you were just testing me, said Naruto with Seraphim nodding her head. Yes, now, before I begin training you, you and your underling must be orientated on the history of the vampires, said Seraphim with Kushina stepping into the conversation. Underling. So far I've learned my son is a vampire. And that he is a nightlord at that. But what's an underling? And who? Asked Kushina trying to be brought up to speed. Right. An underling, in vampire terms, is a human that has been turned into a vampire by a nightlord vampire or another vampire. The vampire that turned the human becomes her master. And the vampire becomes the new vampire's master. In this case, this pale-eyed girl is Naruto's underling due to Naruto turning her, said Seraphim pointing to Hinata. You're a vampire? Asked Kushina only to see Hinata smile, showing off her fangs. Naruto saved me from nearly dying from heart collapse. It was the only way for me. So for me, I'm just a regular vampire. Not a night lord, replied Hinata. Sit down if you wish to hear more, said Seraphim. Instantly, Naruto, Kushina and Hinata were seated before the night lord as she stood there, her arms folded as she looked to the three before her. Now, for a human to become a vampire, the human must drink vampire blood. A simple bite and drink doesn't work. Or should I say won't work. The only way is through one of two methods. The second is only for nightlords. The common way is to drink vampire blood as I've told you. But this makes the human the vampire's underling. As I've told you. The second is what we nightlords call awakened gift. What we do is feed from the person. But as we're feeding, we inject a special venom into the human. This venom only can be used twice. Once the venom is in the human's bloodstream, they will transform into a vampire. That's if the venom doesn't kill you, said Seraphim with Ari stepping into the discussion. What happens to the person should he die? Asked Ari. Then, they die. Plain and simple. And the nightlord is able to use awakened gift again. However, if the person does survive, they lose the ability entirely. I've used awakened gift only twice. And both times, the person survived. For you, Naruto, it was an accident. I was so mad for having so many people treat my kind as animals. Burning them and killing them with no remorse. I collapsed on the route you took. When I saw you there, all I saw was a human who hated vampires. I'm sorry for turning you into a nightlord, said Seraphim. It's fine. I'm just happy that I can know what it's like on the other side of the food chain, said Naruto. Wait, if my son was the second person you bit and turned, then who was the first? Asked Kushina. A man named Yagura. He and I were good friends, but he soon became corrupted by the power he had. You see, he was the jailer for the three-tailed beast. Seeing that he was now both a nightlord vampire and a Jinchuriki, the power went to his head. And so began the genocide in Kiri. Seeing that bloodline users walked about in Kiri, drove him into a psychotic rage. He felt that only one powerful force should exist and it was him that should be that powerful force. I tried to stop him, but I couldn't. I couldn't put down a friend of mine. I treated him like a brother. So I ran, said Seraphim. Well, that explains how to have become a vampire or nightlord, but what about the hierarchy? Asked Naruto. There really isn't one. First you get the nightlord vampires. You and me. We're at the top of the ranks. Similar to your daimyos. Then you get the vampires that were turned through drinking the blood of a nightlord. They hold power the equivalent of a cage. They are quite high up there, trailed Seraphim as she noticed Hinata sitting there with stars in her eyes. Just thinking about her being so high up in the Peking order made her extremely flustered. She couldn't believe that by drinking Naruto's blood would give her this much of a ranking. Anyway, we call those type of vampires, blood-cursed vampires. From there, you get your normal vampires, called cursed vampires. Cursed vampires are humans that have been turned by a blood-cursed vampire. These can be described as your regular shinobi, from Genin to Anbu. Then you get your lesser vampires. Lesser vampires are humans that have been turned by a cursed vampire. These hold the very bottom of the chain. They are your civilian-type vampire. A list explaining it will be placed at the end of this chapter, said Seraphim. Okay, so that makes more sense. Now, what about the history? Asked Hannah. I was getting to that. I was born way before you came into existence. Lost count a few centuries back, but I've seen my fair share of everything. Vampires came into existence by Yami herself. She wanted to have a place where creatures of the night could also have a home and not be in hell. Only the ones of pure hearts were chosen to go into the human world. Kami agreed to this and soon created the humans. Over the years, humans became weary around vampires. Soon that weariness became fear. And from there, fear became hate. Humans began to attack vampires out of fear for what they could do. Also that they felt jealous that we vampires could do cool shit unlike them. Vampires soon decided to fight back, and so began the war. From there, an elite force in the humans fought against the vampires, calling themselves vampire hunters. As the years went on, the war was getting brutal, until a woman by the name of Kagaya Otsutsuki came into our midst. She stopped both the warring factions with the aid of the fruit of the god tree. With the war now finished, Kagaya married a nightlord vampire and gave birth to 3 sons. The people lived in peace over the years. But some vampires didn't like the idea of some human coming in and seducing their leader. Sneaking into the one child's room, they murdered the child and framed the human maid that was tasked with taking care of the child. This sparked a rage never seen before in Kagaya's husband. He killed the maid who was innocent and ordered a kill order on every human in the world. With a new war ensuing, the humans were left undefended as the vampire hunters were driven into retreat. Taking it no longer, the humans stole the fruit from the god tree and ate it, gaining the power needed to fight off against the vampires. But this of course angered the god tree. And thus the Jubi was born. The rest you know. With the war dragging on as it is, the humans and vampires called a truce with one another. The truce was this: vampires were to only feed on criminals and live among humans as normal people. The vampires agreed. But from the bowels of such an agreement, many of the remaining vampire hunters still bared a grudge against vampires, said Seraphim. What a history lesson, said Naruto and Hinata. Wait, you said that you had seen a few centuries. How old exactly are you? Asked Kushina with everyone looking to the vampire. As I said, lost count a few centuries back. But I'm sure I've seen at least 7, said Seraphim. You're 700 years old, gasped Hannah with everyone doing the same. As I said, I lost count. So let's just go with 723. That's still young for a nightlord, said Seraphim. How long can a vampire live for? Asked Hinata. We can live for eternity, stated Seraphim. We are beings that have died but are still alive. We walk the line between life and death. Okay. Well, can we get to training? Asked Naruto with Seraphim holding up a finger to stop him. Not just yet. One more thing you must learn. Territories, she said with everyone raising an eyebrow. What do you mean by that? Asked Ari. Vampires have territories that they own. Only nightlords can have territories. Now the territories you have determine where you were born, said Seraphim looking to Kushina. Your mate was born here? She asked. Yes. Minato was born in Konoha, said Kushina. And where were you born? Asked Seraphim. I was born in Uzu, replied Kushina. So, by birthright, Konoha and Uzu belong to Naruto. It doesn't matter if a nightlord vampire was born or made, the territories are theirs. A nightlord vampire can gain territory through one of 3 means. 1. They mate with another nightlord vampire only if they are of opposite gender. 2. They create an alliance with another nightlord vampire. Or 3. They challenge another nightlord, pitting their territories as the prize. Should the third option be taken, only one nightlord can emerge from the battle, said Seraphim. So, by birthright when I became a nightlord, Konoha and Uzu belong to me. What is your territory? Asked Naruto. Kiri. Though Yagura is carrying on that it belongs to him, said Seraphim. So, I've just learned everything there is to know about vampirism. Can you train me already? Asked Naruto. Okay. Now we can train. But, I won't be teaching you but also Hinata. She needs to learn everything there is about her new vampire powers as well, said Seraphim with the 2 vamps nodding. Understood, said the 2 as Kushina got up. Naruto, thank you for saving me. I will make myself at home. But first I need to go and take a shower, said Kushina as she held onto the coat given to her by her son. No probs, said Naruto as Kushina took her leave and left.